Sorry, I'll be your backseat Zoom driver.
That's all right. I need one.
Backseat.
I got new comments since I last spoke.
Cassidy, can you hear us?
You got comments?
No, the new
Yes,
comments
he's
was
on
added
mute.
since I last spoke.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so.
I can hear, sorry. Couldn't find unmute.
I can hear also.
All right.
All right, only a workshop tonight, so no formalities. We can just kind of go at our own pace, do our own thing.
Yep.
So, Andrew, whenever you want, take it away.
Yeah, I'm gonna put this on my screen so I can actually see.
Yeah, and Cassidy and it's Jen, right? Yes. You guys are on the screen, and when the screen's sharing information for us, we can't see you raise your hands. You might just have to speak up if you want to speak up. So please feel free to interrupt us.
You bet.
Share screen. Share screen. And here. And my apologies, I'm a bit scrambled. I've been in Housing and Human Services for the past 2 hours, so I not get to do my normal kind of reset, so. All right, so we will start. I want to show a few slides off of this that I was going to show them. I just think they're, important for tonight's discussion. So we're not talking about Prop 123. So tonight we're going to be discussing, the Board of Trustees has requested that all boards and commissions come together themselves and discuss what to do. There are 4 lots that were granted to the town in Lions Valley Park, the Triangle Lot, and then 3 lots that are concentrated around the L Hill. And then outside of that, the town also owns 2 lots at the end of Carter Court, which is within the Summit Housing development. So the BOT has requested that each board of commission kind of look at what that future zoning designation looks like and what those future uses could look like. So I was going to take this to the Housing and Human Services Commission first, but we did not get to that item. So that will be forthcoming hopefully this week if they could find a time. The reason why we're discussing it tonight is those comments are due back by October 21st, which is next Monday. So things are moving quickly. So I just wanted, since this is a bit of a housing discussion, as you all can probably read through the cover memo that was provided, I was doing some research for the Housing and Human Services Commission today, and I think these are a few important slides. So this chart here, it's from Redfin. There's multiple sites. I try to average Zillow, Redfin, Realtor. There's another one I use because they always, for some reason, have different information, and you think they'd be pulling the same data off of MLS, but it still is different for some reason. So as you can see, this is the median sales price for the town of Lyons. So since 2020, we've seen almost a $400,000 jump in how homes are selling for. And this is just in the past 4 years. That's as far back as I could get the line to go. If we were to take that back even to 2015, 2010, this line would be starkly, trending upward. So right now, Realtor says that our average house sales are 877,000. Zillow is 750. Redfin, they do it month to month. So last month, the month of August, we were at 865. There were 10 homes sold in the town of Lyons, or in the Lyons zip code. And granted, this also is the limits outside of the town's jurisdiction. But this represents in 1 month, it represents an 11.3% up tilt in our home sales. And even more than that, this puts the average square foot to 447. And why I mention this is that's up 50.5% from August of last year. But most of the homes that were sold are existing homes. These aren't newly constructed homes that we're seeing kind of inflated building costs driving up those. So these are just market-driven factors and that aren't due to inflation of construction and labor costs.
Can you help me understand something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
So if the home price is up 11% in 1 year, but the per square foot price is up 51%.
I have no idea why. I can try to figure that out. But I did not have time to do that. And
Got
I
it.
think it's just comparing August of last year to August of this year.
Yeah,
So it's not reflecting that
the
entire.
square feet haven't changed.
Well, I mean, I think there's a pretty recognizable assumption that real property value is based on dirt, not on the structure. So
Mhm.
cost per square footage isn't really very useful with existing homes.
Okay,
I mean, it's not nothing, but it doesn't tell the whole story.
sure.
So like usually,
Location.
but yeah, usually properties sell for the development potential, not necessarily for what's there. And that's reflected in the county assessor's valuation of the structure versus the land. The land is way more valuable than the structure.
Makes sense.
And then at our last meeting, Boulder County staff, they presented kind of analysis, a spreadsheet of kind of cost burden and what that looked like across Boulder County. And they provided some resources, and I hope I can track it down on Chapa's website, but I'd like to bring that back to you all to kind of look at, to kind of look at that as well. But this is more information to kind of tee up this conversation. So I also thought, let me move this because it's in your way. I also thought this was an interesting table as well. These are people that are moving to Lyons and people that are moving out of Lyons. And as you notice, there's only one person that bought a house in Lyons in August that even originated from Colorado. But there were a great many of people leaving Lyons that stayed in Colorado. Again, I'm not an economic, I'm not an economist, but for some reason that trend stuck out and I would like to explore this further.
But then that's the online, from their like surveys, and they get people looking for houses online and
They base it off of MLS. That's how they pull their data.
and then somebody would have filled out the survey saying, the people, the buyer,
Yeah, I don't,
yeah, I'm just wondering how.
if I need to provide more clarity, again, I just wanted to show this. I
Okay.
thought it was an
And they're from
interesting.
very more expensive cities, you know?
Yeah. And this
Yeah.
map of the US shows kind of where the inflow to Lyons has come. And this was just for August, but this is pretty trendy across Colorado. These zip codes are very popular for moving to Colorado.
We do a really aggregate study at CU for where students come from, and it's pretty similar.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's Texas, California, and then what we don't capture here in Lyons is there's a lot coming from kind of the Midwest as well. I only see Chicago there, or Gary, Indiana, or wherever that's coming to.
Everybody wants to live in Gary.
But there's a lot to come from kind of Minnesota, Wisconsin that's not totally captured, but otherwise it looks about right.
But the reason why I brought these kind of moving in, moving out is throughout the comp plan, and as we've heard in kind of neighborhood and community engagement cycles, when we talk about housing, there's always this true desire to maintain Lyons character. And, you know, I was thinking about this, and I'm not trying to sound preachy whatsoever, but this is, Lyons Thrive, when it's talking about the community, it's talking about the people. It's talking about your neighbors, school teachers, whoever lives here. And a lot of times when we talk about housing, we don't talk about people, we talk about the built environment, and that's what represents the community. But there's a nexus there, and it's important in housing that, you know, there are communities right now where people look up and down their streets and they don't know anybody anymore because it's just inflated so much that it's too expensive for people to live there. Just wanted to set that up as kind of a context for this discussion. Again, all right. So tonight, this is the real agenda. So we're gonna have discussion and direction to staff and the BOT regarding rezoning of Lyons Valley Park lots, and discussion and direction to staff and the BOT regarding use and rezoning of vacant lots on Carter Court. So again, all this information, hopefully you all had time to look at the cover memo, but the town owns these 6 lots. And here's some maps to show where they are. This is number 1 is the triangle lot. It's right after the pond, right after you cross the McConnell Bridge. And then all of the Elk Hill lots are just the lots that are directly below the big L on the hill. And then these 2, Carter Court, that's the first cul-de-sac once you get into the Summit housing development. So the town owns these two right here. So, I've gone to each of these properties. I've read through the comp plan several times and also have truly tried to understand the context of conversations that, you know, we've had a lot in the past 6 months about housing in Lyons. And, you know, I've received several emails. I've had several phone calls from different community members now that are fairly representative of the entire community. And that's inclusive of the Eastern Corridor. So, and I want to preface kind of my staff analysis and recommendations with, in no way is this a rezoning process. Shut that door. In no way is this a rezoning process. Again, the board is only seeking to get preliminary input on these lots. If any of these lots were to be considered to be rezoned, we would go through the full public hearing process. There would be a public hearing before you and a public hearing before the Board of Trustees. There was a bit of confusion today that this was a part of a formalized process. I've done my best to try to explain that that is not the case, that again, each board and commission, and I imagine that each board and commission will come back and recommend, you know, different zoning districts for each of these lots. So the first one that I'd like to talk about today is the triangle lot. So this lot, again, it's surrounded east, west, and south by residential development and fairly large residences. I think the average size is 2,779 square feet. So there are large houses in this area. And so for this reason, you know, placing density there and I provided some models. I am in no way even good at SketchUp. I'm just bad enough to ask the wrong questions, but I tried because, you know, it's good to have something, but those are just concepts. They're just for a conversation. The goal here is to start to think about what properties can we actually fulfill our Prop 123 goals. So since this one is surrounded by development, it's along a neighborhood street, it's close to town services, it's below the blue line. There is a 100-year floodplain on this lot, but I believe with some creative site design or just raising the properties, you know, above a base flood elevation, we can mitigate all of those hazards. But the true option, or the highest and best option would be if this were to ever be developed, and that's a big if, that all of this is closer to McConnell so that there's no impact to floodway. And the reason why it should kind of affront McConnell is the drainage drains onto McConnell and not towards the ponds. So this conceptual site plan, and here it is, let's see. Oh, and one last note. So as part of Prop 123, we've had a lot of conversations about public-private partnerships, and those truly are the most efficient way to actually get a project underway, to get it funded. And even a few developers that we've been in conversations with in town staff, they have their own management companies, or they have management companies that they use. So they would be able to fulfill from start to developing the site to going all the way down the property management side. But again, that's way down the road, but just trying to set up kind of a future solution for the town's housing needs. So this is the, you know, again, conceptual site plan that you see. In speaking with other staff and just housing professionals, this project could be really cool. So they could be conveyed as for sale units. So these are 3-story buildings, but they do fall as designed, and everybody that I've spoken to. And again, these are just inquiries. I'm not trying to line up development for this lot, but getting 3 stories under 35 feet isn't really all that hard of an issue to accomplish. So this level here would be a standalone for sale unit. This unit would be sold as one unit and with a deed restricted ADU. So that gives whoever purchases the second and third floor, that gives them an income property that they can have in town. And ADUs have been a big push in our community as well. So this is just trying to capture as much of those community discussions as possible. As always on lots and small lots, parking is always the most difficult thing to figure out where to go. At least each unit needs to be provided at least one parking space. But normally, you know, this lot shows 1 to 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit. And the ADU, the double, the second and third floor being combined under single ownership eases that a little bit. But again, if this property were considered, you know, to be developed in this manner, and to go down that path, it would achieve 60% of our Proposition 123 goals right now. And what that does is, Julie knows firsthand, annexation conversations are difficult and they're important and they need to take time. Our first cycle ends November 26th of 26. So to stay committed to Prop 123, we have to have 10 units permitted by that time. So again, just permitted. They do not have to be built. They just have to have their permit.
And how much money do we really get if we do that?
It's not all about the money. Let me.
Yes, it is.
So,
We get our capacity building grant.
so we get loan banking, equity, concessionary debt, affordable home ownership, serving persons experiencing homelessness, and local planning capacity grants. We've got three local planning capacity grants right now. But what we also get that isn't discussed enough is we get rental assistance, down payment assistance, and single family home rehab from the DOH.
Guaranteed.
And that's a huge benefit
For the whole community.
for the community, as long as we're opted in and we're meeting our commitment.
Yeah.
This is a possibility. Now, the revolving grant from DOH, the last one, that is not funded yet. It will come on cycle next term. Do you have a question?
So the town owns this property?
Yep.
So the town can just give the town a permit.
It's currently zoned B. It's the only, there's 2 B business zoned lots.
No, I know, but I'm just.
The town has to go through its permitting process. At least if I'm behind the wheel here, the town has to go, and it would never not go through its
Yeah.
permitting
Could the
process.
town be its own GC, like a homeowner could be its own GC? No, I'm trying to just ascertain how easy a permit is to get.
I don't know. Again, I think that's way too, we're just talking about the future zoning designation.
Fair enough.
Great drawings, by the way.
I don't know if that's true, but.
I thought you were talking about.
Oh, okay.
I was just wondering if it has to be a F-150 or maybe we could get like a Ram or something in there instead.
You know.
We need a couple of golf carts. Come
Well,
on,
I think
guys,
it's-
it's fine.
I will say that-
Totally.
Okay, so this is,
Golf
what I was
cart
wondering,
parking spaces for the golf cart.
are we open for discussion right now on this? Okay.
Sure.
It's a workshop.
Okay. I went before I came over, actually saw Amy across the street, but I was going outside with my iPad and I walked over, because we both live in Lions Valley Park. So I went and took pictures of those 2 prior lots and the house next door, and I walked down to the triangle lot and I took pictures of it. And after I looked at these pictures, and you're leaving up the houses next door, which are all 2-story houses.
Yeah, I did not want to build all of the neighboring houses.
Well, that's just, I understand, but I mean, that would give some important perspective about why some people are completely against it, I mean, it's an entire 2-story, standard residential.
Yeah.
subdivision.
Is it better than, say, like a drive-through coffee shop?
Well, that's it, yeah, there's the drive-through coffee shop on,
Or kayak rental station.
Well,
Well, no,
zone
it's currently
B,
zone B.
so B, I guess,
As is the drive-through coffee shop currently.
yeah, okay, and that's a good question, I
So we're really
don't,
talking about best use of the property, not necessarily whether or not the neighbors want it to be developed.
Okay, because,
Well, and the good thing about this lot is it does
Fair
have,
question, I just, would they
yeah,
rather
I-
have residential next to them, or would they rather have a business next to them, or would they rather have industrial, or what are the
I
options?
think they wanted
Open
to-
space.
open space.
I wanna go back to the original point though. You,
But it's
you sort
business
of
right now.
opened this workshop saying like, people here, according to comp plan, say they wanna retain the character, which is knowing your neighbors, and I'm all for affordable housing, but how does creating more housing help us know our neighbors better?
well, because, so right now, I know of several individuals that are house burdened right now in town.
Sure.
And, you know, and other people that are phasing into kind of empty nesting in their life and they don't want to pay taxes on a, you know, 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom house. But there's nowhere in town to downgrade. So you either stay in that large home or you move to somewhere more affordable. And as the town, you know, all towns age, you know, we go through cycles. And that will be a prevalent problem where you just, individuals on fixed income, you know, don't want to pay taxes on, you know, large homes and, you know, but at least that's the trend across the US. I don't know if that's exactly the trend in Lyons.
So that would be R3, something like this.
And so I guess, yeah, I just found it disturbing that was 3 stories in a neighborhood that's entirely.
And again, it's
Yeah,
just a
yeah.
concept.
No, no,
If
no,
it, if
I
it
know.
were, if it were 1 story and a longer building or 2 stories and, you know, I mean, there's endless possibilities how to get, you know, more than 1 unit or, you know, if the highest and best use for that lot is a parking lot to access the ponds, that's great. But, you know, this is a conversation that we need to have.
Yeah.
I just, okay, no, I thought that it's even its own business, you know.
I mean, if I came along before any of that neighborhood existed, I might think that it was best used as open space,
Yeah.
and yet you live there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And, you know, just in terms of, you know, having spent the whole summer on the IGA task force and having had the conversation with everyone on the edge of town who is equally unhappy about the concept of annexing anything or building anything. And the answer all summer was infill, right? Because
Or the
we can't
eastern
grow.
border.
We don't want to sprawl. We have to preserve the character of lands, and we do that through infill. And now here we are with this kind of phenomenal infill opportunity. Well, no, we shouldn't do it in here. We should do it somewhere else. Listen, guys, we gotta do this. It's actually, you know, not only keeping the people who live in Lyons, but you know, I want my teachers to be able to live here. I want the firefighters to be able to live here. I want the people who work for the town to be able to live here. That's what makes a community. And it is just so disturbing to have gone from a whole summer of don't build it out here, don't build, God, everyone supports affordable housing and they all understand how important it is. And they all talk about how important it is. And of course we want more, but not here.
Not next to
Let's
me,
do it
not in my
over here.
backyard, I
And
don't want my
I'm-
front yard
I'm-
either.
I'm Beyond frustrated
Maybe,
with that.
you know, I can bring you a whole, cause I was doing transportation, I should bring in my little things that I used to hang in my cubicle. Okay, there's like NIMBY, eat, banana, build absolutely nothing anywhere near anyone. There's I've got the whole thing, I should bring it in,
I've
I
never
wanna
heard
bring it
banana.
in.
Because there's plenty of bananas in this town too, and that's just,
Uh,
the only constant is change. Things are gonna change. It's either gonna become a place where only $7,000 multi-million dollar homes are built on the outskirts and no one else can afford to live here, or it's gonna sustain some sort of community. And we're gonna be able to open Mariposa and keep Faro open because there's people who live here, who work here. Otherwise, the community is, it's just not a home. It's not a community.
So hearing what you're saying, in terms of the inflow and outflow chart that you showed us, you build more homes and you can't guarantee that that aging couple who has a 5-bedroom wants to downsize is gonna get this property. It might go to someone who's coming from LA. It just might.
Well,
So if it's
again,
really a choose
again,
goal.
with deed
So what are
restrictions,
those?
yeah, with deed restrictions,
Of
it's
an
very,
of an ADU.
no, on homes,
On
for
On
sale
whole
homes.
homes?
Yeah,
I thought you said a home with a
no,
deed
if
restriction
the
ADU.
town were to,
Townhomes.
if the town were to be an impromptu developer, it would expect deed restrictions. And deed restrictions are very clear, you know, when I lived in Teton County, you had to work for the county, you had to show that you'd worked there for this long. You had to at least work this many hours with the county, you couldn't own a property within a certain radius of Teton County. So, I mean, there are measures that you can set, and even if you look at how Summit County does things.
Yeah.
When they develop housing, they say you either have to live in Summit County, you can live in Routt County, and you might can live in Eagle
maybe,
County.
yeah.
And that's it. And you had to have lived in those areas and work in those areas for a certain amount of time to qualify for that housing. But again, this discussion, and I love getting in the weeds, but it truly is just about rezoning. I will say about the third floor issue. If the town, whether it's on this lot or any other lot, it's in the community's best interest. These are the community's tax dollars at work to maximize the property. So it doesn't make too much sense to not use a property to its fullest potential while matching as best you can the character of the community.
Yeah, no.
Question. So,
Maybe we can go around. Say something, you can start.
no,
Yeah.
never start. Well, so if the town owns these and would conceivably, be the fuel for a development, why not just leave it zoned as is and look to zone with a PUD, look to develop with a PUD?
I don't know. I think,
Good question.
I think to get, this amount of units on the lot, we can do it with straight R3 zoning, and then we don't have to worry about, going through a PUD process and then amending a PUD, if that time came. But I mean, that's a good question. That might be something to be considered. But we can't recommend a PUD because a PUD has to come with its own separate rules and regulations, and it has to be attached to a site plan, if that makes sense.
We can't enter into a public partner or a public-private partnership.
Oh, yeah, I mean, if there was a project in hand, but it's in the BOT's, their request is they're considering these rezonings right now. So it would be almost impossible at this point to rezone to a PUD unless we had this full train started, of which we do not. All we have is, this is a bit better than a drawing on it.
The reason I was thinking about it is like if somebody decided these would be excellent work-live units, right? So
Uh-huh.
now we're rezoning again in 5 years or whenever that person comes along and wants to do it a different way.
Yeah.
So why not just wait until we have the partnership in place before we zone them?
That's a perfectly.
I mean, people are gonna get upset now, they're gonna get upset then, they're gonna get upset now if we rezone it, they're gonna get upset when we develop it. So why not just save all the upsetness for just one shot instead of spread it out?
Is-
Mark,
It,
go this way.
it strikes me that generally what has happened is people feel put upon, that someone's making decisions that they don't particularly like and it's being pushed on them.
Yeah.
And, they see things, and even if they see this memo, first thing they're gonna think is the town is putting, a bunch of people and traffic and blah, 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 the school's gonna be overrun. I've heard all those so many times.
Water shares.
It occurs to me that we may need to spend a fair amount of time in what value
Yeah.
is being created for the community. And as you were going through the kind of things that you can put in deed restrictions, for example, if the priority for occupation of these homes or dwellings would be teachers, firemen, and town employees, that may sell a little differently. For example, teachers would be, probably welcomed reasonably well by the people in that neighborhood because it would help with the parking. And you couldn't say, well, it creates a problem for traffic because all the teachers are gonna walk down the street to a high school unless they go to the elementary school. But, some things like that create, talk about value. Right now, that little lot is doing no value for this community whatsoever, except if people like the look of it right now. And that's the only value it provides. With this, there would be property tax, there would be more people buying more things in town, so help sales tax. It could create opportunities for, as I was mentioning, people that we want in this community to do the things that are wanted by the people in this community. So it just occurred to me, when I was looking over this, that, developing that value proposition may be, the single most important element of how we move forward. And I think, so that strategy could guide us in the selection of the zoning that we want to apply.
Could we add a language to the comp plan that talks about developing town-owned properties and the best use for that? Would that be where that would live?
So every,
Or you mean like in a staff report or the next version?
Well, yeah, or, you know, just how we start into any public meetings in the presentation to the Board of Trustees. All of those efforts, it's like saying, instead of starting, you know, we're, I shouldn't say this, but, you know, it's not people who are released from mental institutions in Venezuela who are gonna come in there.
Yeah.
That is, it's going to create value, and, you know, perhaps the teachers will be from Venezuela, which would be just fine,
yeah,
but,
and that was in my staff report, that we're not, or maybe it was in an email, sorry, I've sent a lot of things today, but we're not trying to attract new people to Lions. We're trying to provide the people that already work here, or they might still be displaced from the flood.
Your battery's done.
Or, oh, I thought I was plugged in, thank you.
but isn't it live or work here?
In the comp plan. Or just
Or
in spirit.
in terms of our conceptual promotion of it, if we're saying that, it's for people who already live here, but isn't it actually people who already either live here or work here?
Yeah, if that's what the deed, if that's what it was decided, that's what most deed restrictions that are built by, you know, housing trusts or communities, there's always some sort of clause like that. I'm sorry, I'm struggling to find a charger. I don't really have one. Y'all keep going.
I've said no.
I was just curious about the minimum parking requirements. I know it's a little bit off, but I just wanted to be reminded of that. For affordable developments, wasn't there legislation passed this year where there actually, that can't be a minimum?
Sorry,
Occupancy?
parking?
Parking.
For
Now there's-
multifamily, the question is if duplexes or triplexes actually qualify as multifamily. I have to meet with Attorney Dittman to kind of see what the ramifications of that are. And I don't know if you stack two duplexes on one lot, is that considered under that new legislation
Interesting.
multifamily because it's 4 or more? I don't know, because the general definition of multifamily is 4 or more units in one structure, but I don't know. I'll be right back. I get my charger.
For this lot, if you didn't put parking there, I mean, you're just handing a sledgehammer to the people who are opposed to it, because they're gonna say, you know, it's going to jam up the front of the, because there's no street parking there now. Not that there's room for street parking, but there hasn't been street parking there. And, you know, so doing something like this where there is some off-street parking, even if it's fairly minimal, to me, it would be a good way of saying, look, you know, we're really trying to address the things that people are concerned about and bring value to our community, to you, to your neighborhood, to the whole community. And, you know, without creating the kind of issues that people constantly bring up.
We go around. and-
Yeah, I know, I was wondering if you said what you wanted to say, or,
I'm done.
yeah, this is my neighborhood and Amy's neighborhood, and drive by it every day, right out. I'm actually, I think most people, I'm a real strong proponent of affordable housing. Some housing development, I was for it when a lot of people were not so for it, and so I am. And I'm fine with it. I'm fine with that. As I was taking pictures today, met some residents over there. I've met them before. And I'm still welcoming. And I'm glad we have it there because I agree we need different income level, we need different kinds of people. It's actually a little, it's funny that you bring up like, the firefighters. And when I worked at RTD for 4.5 years, and then I worked in the private sector for 5 years. So I used to work with a transfer and development specialist. Now, that's, transit, you want a lot of density, mines is not about that. Sorry, I mean, we're an exurb compared to, living and working in downtown Denver. But where I'm going with this is she used to always bring up how if people have this idea that we could have this single family life living, that's what you find, and you go back in census records, that's not true. That people have always had different kinds of housing situations. And she's pointed out, she always points that out. And so that's why, and Neil, you brought this up before, how single family housing, it tends to be exclusionary. And it used to be this thing you wouldn't say as a planner like decades ago, but now I think in the last 10 years, people will say, single family housing is exclusionary. It's something they actually will openly say, something that was kind of something you wanted to say, but really kind of, and so now we're fixing it after the fact because, kind of sort of, I mean, I'm just jumping around here, but, I'm a big proponent of affordable housing. A lot of that comes through density, not always. Sometimes it's just a smaller house, a smaller single family house. It's not always condos and duplexes and triplexes. The 3-story thing, I understand, and when I was thinking about this, I figured 3-story had to do with that maximizing or making it cost effective even.
Yeah.
And so in a 2-story residential area, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I took pictures. We do have a couple in the Summit House. We have two apartments out of those, but they're all 2-story. And yeah.
Instead of stories, do you know, and I can try to find this as well, do you know the average height?
Yeah, they're pretty high. They kind of go up the hill, so they're kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
Because I do know at least that there's only one home since I've been here that they're seeking to try to construct. It's right at 35 feet.
Is that what it is? Like, yeah.
And I think it would be.
I was noticing that. It's pretty high, yeah.
I think it would be a pretty.
Pictures if you want to look at them. Yeah.
I think it would be a pretty good analysis to show that while they are 2-story homes, there's probably a pretty high attic.
Pretty high, probably a vaulted ceiling, or yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And again, this isn't me fighting that perspective whatsoever. I just think we need to think holistically.
Yeah, no, and I was looking at that, I was like, well, they are pretty tall, high, but I'm curious to know, I don't know how that compares.
Yeah.
That's where, having something next to each other would be a really good comparison. But I've always been, I'm still a big proponent of affordable housing because it's such, having got a master's in planning, there are some, got a lawyer here, there's some really strong court cases that talk about housing, such a basic need that, it's so important, these court cases date back decades. And so I'm always, and I agree with, the firefighters, the teachers, in the community, the reason why it's good to have different kinds of people, because you have, and the retirees and the things, because, they're when you're working all day, your retirees are sometimes the people around who watch your children when you come home from school because you can't get home from work, or you can't get off work, or you have the fire, you have the different kinds of people in your community who serve different functions. The police, the firefighter down the street who helps, you talk to, and you're like, oh, I noticed your house, probably, we're doing a fire mitigation, they're the watchful eyes in your community. They're having different kinds of people around are really, really important, and in different stages of their lives. So I'm always very supportive, and always, and the fact that we always have to do this after the fact because we can't do it right up front, always frustrates me, but, in this particular lot, though, I'm not sure, just because it's right next to open space and a residential development, and it seems like it's right near in the floodway. It seems like it'd be more. That sounds like past discussions. They even want to put a parking lot on there, which doesn't. I understand not like a paved one, but like a gravel one, like you have with like a small one. next to like, the wastewater treatment plant or Bone Park where, in an area that badly needs parking, because people always want to come over there and bring their kayaks and go out kayaking in the ponds. That, I mean, you see people always want, you know, they painted the street yellow because everyone was the curb yellow, and then there's actually a fire hydrant right next to that property too.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no parking on the street. I mean, now people go up, you know, you've probably seen them by the, you go out on 66 and it's, you go east on 66 and it's.
Sounds like you're really conflicted about it, like, you want housing's good, maybe that's not the right property.
Exactly, yeah, I think that's where I'm going with this.
Yeah,
And, yeah,
and I'll pull us back in a bit.
Yeah.
Let's not focus so much on the models. Again, it was just to show
Yeah,
that
you're
housing could work on this lot. What the BOT is asking for from each commission is, what is the best zone district for each of these lots?
Mhm.
Is it, you know, open space? Is it, I don't see it being, it's either gonna be residential or open space. I don't really see it going, or a municipal, but I don't know what facility would
Heavy
be on that
industrial.
lot. So that's really the discussion here is could housing be placed on this lot? Or could a parking lot or a playground or, you know, or should it just be vacant in perpetuity? I think that's the real kind of where our conversation needs to go.
I think
Well, along that line, would it be worth calculating the different values created for the town of the various options? So for example, if it stays the way it is, it's 0. And then if it were one structure, a single family home, that would bring in some property tax and some sales tax. If you put a duplex on, then it changes that formula. And, you know, so which of those creates the most value? And that's just one criteria. And then another one might be in terms of the other values that it brings. In terms of opportunities for retirees that want, you know, to reduce and opportunities for service personnel that the town needs one way or another. You know, so that we're creating a value proposition as opposed to trying to, you know, sell people, you know, that strange people are gonna be living in their town.
And that was also another reason why, you know, again, and this is conceptual, but if we're having this discussion that gets into the weeds, why these would be important to be equity units, for sale units. So that way, you know, at least your neighbors are consistent for longer cycles.
So
Just
you
to
mean by equity ownership?
Yes.
Mhm.
And just complete the cycle or the exercise, maybe we can make space real quick for Jen and
Oh, yeah.
Amy to offer any kind of insight or personal philosophy so we can guide the discussion. No, that's okay. Jen, do you have anything you want to add to the conversation around your thoughts on affordable housing in general, or maybe the way we should be thinking right now today in this commission?
Well, it does seem that we're in the weeds right now. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
This is my neighborhood. I've lived over here for 21 years and I've seen the emails and I had people trying to contact me all day today about this topic at this one little triangle. Yeah, I think there's more to be discussed about all the other places for infill before we look at this one, just because it's easier because the town of Lyons owns it. And all that you're saying is stuff I've been saying forever when I was on the IGA task force is how are we ensuring, Andrew hears me, it's like I'm a broken record about this. And your conversations are better than the ones we were having with the other group about ensuring that this is really for people who work in town, spend money in town, and not the people from California, Texas, East Coast. And you know what I mean? It's like that's what the goal is supposed to be. It just seems like a really hard reach to meet that goal and to have people qualify to be able to do these things. That's the hard part.
I think there's models. I know there's models out there. I think the Summit housing had different funding streams, and so that dictated just a very specific income target. if, which we have now is the opportunity to set the table with a capital stack that not only works for the feasibility of the project, but for also the intended residents.
Results.
I mean, I think in the ownership space, Elevation Community Land Trust is a statewide land trust. They do home ownership for people at 70 to 80% AMI. They love it when towns or government entities donate the land and then they develop it and then they manage the deed restriction, and residents can earn up to 25% equity in the land trust versus 3%
Oh, wow,
tradition.
25 is big.
Other, it's big.
Huh.
And even more if the tenant does improvements themselves. So there are models out there. There are a ton in the town of Breckenridge where that's what they call workforce housing.
Yeah.
So I do think there's models out there that we can look for. I mean, as a person who drives by that hundreds of times a month or something, you know, like
Me
just the
too.
traffic from there, it seems like it would need at least another stop sign there or something, just to keep everyone safe.
Yep.
And in your notes, you know, the note about, we're still 98 homes in the deficit of our affordability from the flood.
That was in the comp plan.
And, you know, that's, so, I mean, I think we get like chasing the dollar of Prop 123, which is important. And I do think, to your point, quantifying the options, but don't forget to quantify all those other parts of Prop 123, like the rental assistance, the down payment assistance. You know, it's bigger than just those units. And if it's not this unit, maybe it's time we look at all the parcels that the town owns, and maybe we did that before and we might have gotten.
I know, and it is difficult because during the flood even, and after the flood, when all my friends lost their places, I wanted to buy the Hawkins property with my lotto winnings that I never won and build another trailer park that was beautiful with all the big trees and put all my displaced people. And then we wanted the Valley Bank, the old Valley Bank, which is now, look what it is. I mean, so there's been lots of ideas over the last 21 years that I know of.
Yeah, that's leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she was wondering, yeah, you were talking about where Leaf is gonna be located.
Yeah, where the
okay?
Leaf building is. We wanted to make that the little apartment buildings, you know, we thought it would be perfect right there. And then they did the Habitat homes next to it. So, yeah, we've had a lot of great ideas. But
And
Andrew's
I think
right.
there's a lot
And
of-
actually, Neil, you said it best. We're looking at some serious pushback if we get too weedy on this and then people think we're making decisions that really they get to be a part of that public participation and decision making.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say is there's just a lot of innovative designs happening with modular and tuck under garages in a 3-story that's probably 35 feet that just take care of the density and the parking all in one in
Yeah.
duets. And
Yep.
they're cute and super affordable and I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm a yes.
Yeah, so I just want to reel us back
And I
to
know
the-
that's not what you're asking.
the
but that's what
conversation of the night. It is,
Can I interject? Because
Yeah.
this property is one of, what, 5?
6, I believe.
6, all right, and parcels 2 through 5, the L Hill lots are really, I think, pretty easy for us to
Yeah.
discuss, those are up next.
Yep.
And then the Carter Court lots are probably easier to discuss than this one, so I do think time
Probably so.
spent on this one is probably indicative of how we will approach the other ones, and we can move
Yes.
through them very
Good
quickly.
point.
But we probably have beat this one to
Yeah.
death.
Mhm.
And now it might be worth going through the rest of the presentation and having kind of philosophical debate about how to get back to the board of trustees.
Okay.
Would that be the best use of time, Andrew?
That sounds great.
Yeah, I was really curious about the Out Hill if they're above the blue line. Because there's availability and there's ease of development.
Yeah, so L Hill lots, I have proposed they go straight to Parks and Open Space. You know, we just did analysis and I couldn't find it before I came, but our park to citizen ratio in Lyons is very high.
Astronomical, yeah.
And you know, again, well, I'm not gonna go back to the triangle lot, so we've moved on.
Yeah.
So, but these make sense. I mean, especially the L Hill, but even the smaller two lots, they're small and there's really no connectivity. So it's my recommendation that the
Just know that
PCDC recommend.
they were
parks and
originally, the
open
reason
space.
why, at least that first one, L Hill Lot number 1, that was part of the original Markel. They actually had a cul-de-sac planned into
Yep.
there. And then they decided to just
Okay.
build houses. I'm not sure why they didn't decide not to have another cul-de-sac there, but they decided just to build those 3 or 4 houses in front instead of adding extending houses into there and having another cul-de-sac, but that's why.
I think the underlying issue is that access is a immense problem.
Oh, is that
But
what?
why you wouldn't want housing?
Yeah.
Okay, I
Yeah.
was wondering why we would want.
You just
Okay.
can't get to it.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
just-
Yeah, okay,
You
yeah,
would need easements through what are already very small parcels,
yeah,
so I don't think it's doable based on what I was seeing, but.
yeah, no,
Okay.
that's,
Okay.
okay, yeah.
and they just kind of sit, they're on a hill. It's just, again, when we're talking infill, staff really is trying to spread this love across the community. Like, that's what we're trying to do. And that's just, might be too much love for that.
Also,
hill.
like zoning needs something now, if the board of trustees decides to do so or suggest doing so, it does not mean it can't be rezoned in the future
That's
for a better use. So this is not a forever thing, this is just a for now thing.
So that's the L Hill lots. Is there any conversation about
Or you
this?
put mansions and a helipad.
Somebody on the
Just
housing
helicopter it.
study
It'll make
suggested
sense.
an L-shaped multifamily apartment building. which
Yeah.
sounds Really so freaking hilarious.
Sorry, say it again.
When we did the housing study, the survey, somebody, I assume jokingly suggested a 5-story L-shaped multifamily building.
Did it stack into the
That's-
hillside?
I don't know, it was,
Hopefully the students don't paint it pink. Whatever each year.
that one cracked me up.
Interesting.
But any other questions? And if you go back and look at the housing futures plan, there were a lot of red dots all around kind of the Bone Park area.
There was
So
some
there's a lot of public feedback
excellent folk humor.
about not putting more housing in that, you know, up towards that open space. Carter Court lots. So these lots are also owned by the town. And they're kind of similar to the triangle lot, but even more so. But we'll go over kind of the limitation on that lot here in a second. But they're already in a workforce housing community. There's already a management company there. I don't know how that would look, but again, we're not talking in the weeds. I'm not gonna get more in the weeds on this one. Again, this conversation is, could and should, you know, higher density housing be provided on that lot, or should it remain R1? And for a little background, the town right now is going through a design for a string bank restoration, about said resurrection, but restoration of that lot. And right now, those two lots, to restore that bank, it's intended that the toe of that slope is going to be brought pretty far up onto these lots. But it's in design phase right now. And so in looking at the property right now, from kind of the edge of curb to the existing fence, which is kind of where it starts to drop off, it's about 50 feet. So, you know, again, staff worked on this model using very narrow, they're 20 by 48, 400 or 860 square foot units. And these are designed to be duplexes. So it would, to get to there, we would also, the town would need to rezone those to R3 to maintain that density. But there's no, these weren't sent out to other. It's really just the other 5 that we discussed. But since we were in this area and we're having kind of this conversation about kind of meeting our Prop 123 goals and kind of lower hanging fruits of how to do that. The lots are small and they have their challenges, but you know, and at least doing some initial mock-ups, you know, we could probably achieve 2 duplex units. And the good thing about this design, they would obviously be rental units because the entire neighborhood is rental. But, the bottom floors would be solely, ADA compatible and they would be for that citizen base. And that's a good thing about having such a shallow lot, you know, because, it kind of forces those connections to be quite close. But that's really it. It's kind of the same, the same assets as the triangle lot, even more. Again, we're below the blue line, we're around density. This is true infill development. These are 2 platted lots within town. They already are residentially zoned, but they could be upzoned, if we wanted more housing. And again, the intended purpose of our Prop 123 goals is to house folks that already live and work here. So
Would something like, oh, sorry.
Just a quick question, why weren't they included in the summit housing?
I don't know.
Just curious.
Would these be 1 bedrooms at that size or? I know I'm getting way in the weeds, and then let me just say why I'm asking that is we identified a huge need for 1 bedroom units. And so one of the things that I think surprised a lot of people about Lions Valley townhomes is that there are very few townhomes there. I mean, it's almost all single family homes. And so certainly duplexes are a step in the right direction. I think I was just curious about that. What would be typical for a 680 square foot? Is that?
Yeah, again, at this point, they could be anything, you know, they would not be more than 2 bedroom, 1 bath.
1 bedroom would be fabulous.
I think under 800 is really hard to do too.
Yeah, I would
And we
imagine so.
need that, I mean, that would be, I mean, wow, to have, we have a list of like 90 people or something. who want-
Looking for 1 bedroom.
So
I mean, why?
the last thing I'll say, and this, I'll let you all have the floor, is with these properties, we would overachieve our Prop 123 goals. And again, the greatest asset behind that is that we do not have to try to annex property. We don't have to, you know, wait for market trends to drop, you know. But if that's not the highest and best use for these lots, it's not the highest and best use. I just wanted to open up that conversation.
Why not combine parcels? Was that ever discussed?
They could be combined if that was.
Yeah.
It'd make it a whole lot easier to make them fit on a triangle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the reason that was, okay, the flood came through and cut off part of the back of the lot from there. That's what part that was. I mean, I remember during the flood watching the water river, I mean, going by right across, because my house is on the corner at Raymond and Carter, on the corner, my house is the corner house. Yeah, basically, I'm sitting there watching it go by, because this whole area was bigger single family homes, and including 2 single family homes on those lots. And they, the flood cut them out, and I think that's part of the reason, and then it looks like the floodway, or maybe not the floodway, but a little bit of the floodplain. I'm still trying to figure out what exactly, it does still cross a lot, not much, barely, but then.
Well, there's, it might be better to look at it, the second link in the agenda is this like.
Oh, that one, yeah,
elevation
okay, let's
drawing.
look back, okay, let's go.
I think you
Yeah.
can see that the edge of the property in the back gets pretty low in elevation, so it's not developable.
Yeah, exactly, I think that's probably what inhibited some of the, that's why Lions Valley, that's where I'm going with that. Let me find.
That's why combining those 2 parcels might be more realistic.
Yeah,
But even then, like a 4-plex would be easily doable.
yeah, so say, yeah, something like a 4-plex that's probably 2 stories, I'm still going back to that 2-story thing, but yeah. A 4-plex might make a whole lot more sense, that's lower, and also, yeah, they combine the 2, I was thinking, yeah, that's exactly, actually, they used to have a trailer for the building, that's what they put it across both lots, so.
And so either way, R3 would make sense, whether we end up ultimately combining it or not, that seems to be the.
I still wonder if like just saying R1 for now, if I'm getting ahead of myself, the staff report kind of done.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
that's all you.
If we just say R1 now and zone it that, so they have a zoning.
Well, it's already zoned R1, so we don't have to
Oh,
rezone.
well, then the triangle lot, I guess. I just don't. I don't see why it matters if they're R3 versus R1 when they go to a development partnership. Because I think a PUD is gonna be necessary for parking anyway. So I may be wrong. Triangles are usually difficult.
I think the only value, and if you're gonna, again, it doesn't matter to staff, whatever that highest and best use of property is. But if you're going with the ultimate intention to develop housing on a lot, setting kind of that initial expectation of the community up front and kind of being transparent in that way. Especially in the conversations that we've had over the past few months, I think going ahead and taking it as far as the community wants to take it in the first step. But I agree. I mean, I don't know if sequentially, or I can't say that word.
I can ask it a different way then. So if we zoned it R3, went through the process and all was good, it was greenlit, voted on, became real, could it be developed by right by the town, or would it be just sort of a default public review process because it's the town developing something?
No, the town would have to go through the development review process. We'd send it all referrals and.
Okay, so any R3 property would have to go through that process?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, you'd
So-
have less opposition if it were already R3. You'd have set that expectation that it's going to be denser, so you don't have to argue for it later on. It's like incremental advancements and getting towards your goal.
I guess the cynic in me just doesn't think it matters. You're gonna put
I
two fights
think
instead
it
of one fight.
does.
I think
I think it does.
I think it
It-
matters.
It's like the best thing a town can do to do business development. It's like a policy decision to say, this is what we're gonna do. Then you can even put out an RFP and say, here's the parcel, respond to it. Otherwise, it's just you're waiting for somebody to say, oh, there's that parcel over there, but it's zoned B or R1 now, and it's just too much work for.
So
someone
you
to
couldn't
take.
put it out in RFP for an R1 property?
It would be a custom home
Yeah.
person
Another big house on a lot.
Or
to
they,
make it.
Well, no,
pencil.
my-
part of the RFP would be taking it through a rezoning process.
Yeah.
And then it has to
Yeah.
go through
It's
the process, and
more
there's no
work,
certainty, and no one, people are not gonna,
Yeah,
there's
and-
enough risk.
And the only other thing I'll say about kind of setting it to one zone with the future intention of going to the next, again, I think this, and all communities are aware of kind of this incremental change of property. And it could be seen as the town as, they're gonna sneak this one by, and I don't think that would be the intention, but that's a common to US is that, you just incrementally change.
They're just
until
gonna
you get to
do it
where you wanna
anyway,
go.
they're just trying to hide it, they're just trying to trick us.
I don't think that's the perspective.
I don't,
but
I think
I
that's
just-
what people.
I think
Ben.
it's-
I
I
do,
think it's
and
the
I'd rather
best-
be really upfront and say, no, this is what we think is the best use of this property,
Yeah.
period.
I think just being transparent upfront and making those
Yeah.
decisions. But again, whatever that looks like, that's up to you all boards and commissions to come up with those.
These parcels being nested among rentals seems like the path of least resistance for an R3, whereas the triangle property, it's so contentious. I mean, different commissions I've already heard want different things for it.
Mhm.
It's gonna be so hard. This one's like you said, maybe the last one we're visiting is maybe the easiest. I would agree with that. For residential, I think parks and open space, I'm all on board for that for L Hill for now.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me.
Do we have a sense for how the people think about the Carter lots? Have they already mentally zoned it? R3 in their heads anyway,
Who were you thinking of?
The neighbors.
neighborhood. the
I was
people
talking to some
around
neighbors
there.
today, I mean, no, they do, I don't think they want more than 2 stories though, because that's kind of what everything is around them.
Oh,
but-
yeah, and these are designed as, again, in the
Carter
weeds,
lots.
but these Carter lots they're just 2 stories.
Okay, they might be okay. I think I assumed that they were gonna be maybe 3.
No, they're 2,
Okay.
just
Is that?
2 680
Oh,
square
maybe
foot
that was,
lots.
okay, maybe, yeah.
That's just a window.
It's a
Okay.
fancy window.
Yeah, what do they call those? Okay, so then it's meant to be 2 stories.
Your story window.
Yeah, and you can, yeah,
I
okay, so
think what
then,
you can do is when you put out the RFP, you can say, this is, what we're looking for to meet these AMI levels, this many units, and
Yeah.
then you let the developer come
come
up
with
with
it.
a
Oh,
creative
yeah, the design, oh, yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
if you all
And
wanna
then you
see,
go through a process and you can, you put a committee together and.
the town of Center and the town of Rush, Colorado, they have current RFPs out for exactly what you're discussing right now. They have town-owned property, and they're asking developers and planning consultants to come in and plan a community. And they give kind of basic parameters of what that looks like.
We just, oh, go ahead.
Can you just clarify what this means when you have 2 stories and you're saying it's 1,800 square feet per unit with the ADU being 800? Is that 800 out of 1,800 or
shoot, I
1,800
messed
plus
up.
800?
I'm sorry, that sentence is for
The last.
the last
But
one.
even so, like, is that
I think
800
that's what
out
he
of
meant.
18 or is it 18 plus 8?
Yeah, so it's 1,000 on the bottom.
Yeah.
1,000 in the middle, 6 to 800 on the top.
Okay.
And then those 2 units would be sold as one, with one 6 to 800 square foot ADU and one 1,000 primary dwelling.
Got it. Okay.
My apologies, I totally missed. Thank you for catching that in my slides, so I can fix it for Housing and Human Services.
We could do a straw poll just to see if like we're all in agreement and we could go on our merry way, or if we're not, we can debate it more.
I think we should wait until midnight.
You don't have an hour commute,
We
so,
could
no,
get way too much sleep for this one.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and then we don't do them often, so I don't know the best way to do it. I guess,
Straw poll, just,
yeah, I guess it would be, you know, all in favor of agreeing in principle with the staff recommendation of R3 for the triangle lot, R3 for Carter, and Parks and Open Space for the hill. So if we were to raise our hands in favor, yes, or leave them down for, you know, no contest, if you will, it doesn't have to be a no. Would you guys be okay doing that?
And, I mean, this isn't a formal decision, but I will be putting it in my staff report, full disclosure.
Yeah.
So, because the BOT is asking for y'all's recommendation.
And could you open up so we can see Jen's hand up if she does it? You just have it clapped.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Hey, Jen, do you hear us? You still hear us?
Yeah, I hear you. I don't think I'm ready to vote in favor of this yet. I would abstain.
Oh, that's fine. It's really just a straw poll. It's not binding in any way. It's just us understanding amongst ourselves if we agree or not. So we could either agree to stop discussing because we generally agree, or we could keep discussing or keep debating.
Oh,
or, yeah. Sorry, no, I didn't mean to box you in that way.
Can I have you just clarify my understanding of town-owned property? What kind of discretion do you have in deciding how to use it, or is it the taxpayers who get to vote on how it's used? I'll be like,
If it's parks and open space, that's a regulation that if it's going to change use, the tax, or, you know, the community votes on if it's gonna be used for residents. But if it's zoned correctly, the town would have all rights, just like any other property owner.
To use,
It goes through the same
by right.
processes.
But it would go through the same entitlement process as every other development.
but all
So
the
there would be
residents don't
public
have a
hearings.
say, yeah.
There would be public
Yeah,
hearings.
there's
And how it
public
should be zoned, like we can propose, the DOT can propose zoning, but then we have to have a hearing, and residents have to weigh in whether that's appropriate.
Yes, again, so to frame up the process, and
Yeah.
this is great for the public record as well. Right now, we are not rezoning any lots. The VOT has requested that all boards and commissions just weigh in on their perspectives of how these lots are rezoned or used in the future. If, and that's a big if, any of these lots were to be rezoned, they would follow all of the rezoning procedures first, then they would have to go through the full entitlement process through a development plan, just like any other property.
There's 6 of us. and Jen's already said if we do a straw vote, she'd abstain, which is fine. Why don't we do a show of hands for those in favor of what's proposed in the staff report, just for our discussion purposes?
On every single property, or?
Yep. Go ahead and show your hands. If you're in agreement, raise your hand. If you're wanting to abstain or not in agreement, keep it down. Okay, so it's 4-3.
Well, I have different.
It's all or nothing for the straw.
It's all or nothing?
No, you don't, it's just to understand whether we need to keep having a meeting and discussing, or whether we can generally stop because the staff has gotten what they want from us in the workshop.
Okay,
So if you have any problem at all and you don't want to vote on it, that's fine. So we'll say our straw poll was 4-3, 4 in favor, 3 not voting. And I think that probably signals to us that we're not in a point of agreement where staff has what they need. So
oh,
we can be more
We're almost
specific.
there.
We can be more specific and like talk about different properties. Just out of curiosity, if you're willing to discuss more of 3 non-votes, is it a particular property
Yeah,
that?
it's the triangle
the
property.
triangle.
That's the
I
triangle.
think it's too hard. I think other ones, I love your recommendations.
Yeah,
and then
I'm fine with that,
triangle
yeah.
is too
The triangle's
contentious.
too-
And Jen, I'm sorry, we couldn't hear you. Would you say it's a triangle for you as well?
Yeah, the other 2, I totally agree with your assessments. We've talked about some magical things down there by the river. that matches up with so many of the people that we asked in those neighborhoods. But that triangle one, I can't go on the record for that one.
Fair enough. Well, so I think that's helpful, at least. You could go forward to the board of trustees and say that we all agree with the Carter parcels and parks and open space for the L Hill.
Is
Yeah.
there a down zone? Is there any other zone district? If residential doesn't work, I would like to take, clear answers to the BOT as best possible. What other zone district?
Okay, but we
Would work there.
proposed R1. Would anyone at the table have an issue with R1 being a better zoning than the current B zoning?
What if, could it be like a mixed use overlay so that people who want different things can combine their ideas and maybe create a little residential and a little bit of a kayak rental station or whatever it is that people want and figure out a way to work together?
Creative, yeah.
I am all for creative ideas.
Yeah.
If we're having concerns about congestion, I think having housing, Big Rick's canoe rentals and,
What about-
Larry's paint
Just to
shop.
leave
I
a lot
don't,
of people put out.
How about as a suggestion, what if we take like basically 1 or 2 sentences each and just like wish list, what would you want it to be? Just so we can look at it that way, instead of saying what it shouldn't be, maybe
Yeah.
we could all just imagine what it should be. And that might be an interesting exercise. It may be fruitless, who knows?
Well, sorry, well, I've been wondering why I zoned business to begin with, this is smack in the middle next to open space and residential, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me why it was ever zoned. So that's why it either to remain open space, but I think it could be usable, like, I really do like the idea of like a gravel parking lot or something there, because in an area that badly needs it. And I know that the neighbors aren't gonna want it, I hear this, people stopping at the stop sign next to me all the time, I don't know, there's to some extent, but I think like a gravel parking lot in an area that badly needs it, that could be a use that badly needed it, but the business use, and doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and I'm not sure that's big enough for residential, and
Okay,
yeah.
that's perfect.
Yeah.
Let me go this
exactly.
way, and Amy's next.
Yeah, I think R1, that's a lot of work for one house.
Yeah.
It's just not worth the benefit. So I would say open space or R3.
I'd say R3 at least, like maybe R100 if we wanted to create it, but yeah, as much residential as possible.
Yeah, I think as much residential as possible, but you could do R1, and since the town has, a position there, put an ADU in right away. So the minimum would be 2, and the maximum would be what you outlined with nice looking buildings.
I'd say R3, and I think, we have, as we already said, we are a park-rich town, I don't think we need any more. I mean, we're already adding 3 persons. I think it should be decently dense residential.
I haven't heard enough creative ideas of what's out there. I bet a lot of people have really interesting ideas. Of course, I like R3. I wonder if, like, to Barney's point, if you start sharing like the value proposition of whatever it's going to be for the people who want something like a kayak rental station. Okay, well, how many people from outside of Lyons will come throughout the week and during the weekend to use the water there and rent kayaks and cause congestion in the water? Like, there's just pros and cons of every idea. So people need to start thinking about what they want and what that might bring.
And Jen's next, if you're there.
Yeah, Jen, do you have any specific kind of wish list or dream of what that would be in your mind?
Well, just because also I'm walking all the time there. And then, by the way, the stop sign across the street, the people that live in that neighborhood think that you don't have to stop at stop signs, you just turn right on them. So it's a real problem every day I'm there. But I'm also in the historic preservation group, and we're looking at a space where we could do some kind of Native American historic preservation, interpretive, whatever, and that might fit or dovetail real nicely with just even, the park and the trails and the ponds. I don't know. I mean, you're looking across at some historical places across the road there. But yeah, you're right. Even putting in a parking lot, you're just going to increase traffic, which we already have lots of there, especially when school's in session.
and dust, and I mean, there's well, sorry.
No, I was gonna say, I don't know how, as a commission, we could come to a unified voice, a singular voice to tell the board of trustees this is what we think, but the very slim majority thought that the staff report was a good recommendation. So that could be something you take back to the board of trustees. But that we're divided, we're divided 4-3.
We're mostly divided on the one parcel.
On the one.
We're
Correct.
in agreement on the others, which is pretty great.
So would it be okay if I reflected for the triangle lot that, you all have decided somewhere between parks and open space, R1 or R3? I think that's what I heard.
That's not what I meant.
Okay,
My preference is R3.
Okay.
But if it's not that, I don't think it should be, I think it should be open space.
okay.
We need input from others. Well, the consensus.
A weak majority approves
Yeah,
the idea of R3 as a proposal from the board of
Narrow
trustees.
narrow
We
majority.
don't have to give better information, that if that's where we are, that's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what a workshop's
I
for.
think that's great.
Yeah,
No,
there's-
the
they're getting
Supreme Court
interpreted.
kind of likes it that way, don't they? With 5-4, that means they thought about.
It's exciting.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Same.
It's also
There's your
very,
prediction.
It's an unsatisfying one potentially for staff, but it is a temperature check, which is what we have to do.
So in agreement
And I
with,
object to an analogy of or comparison of this group with the Supreme Court.
Yes, I will vote, yeah.
so my staff report or my cover memo to the BOT will reflect support for Carter Court, support for the L lots, and a 4-3 majority for staff recommendation
Tepid
for
support.
tepid support,
Slight majority.
for the triangle lot, and I think that works.
Okay.
That's all I was asking. Again, sorry about getting into the weeds. I really wasn't trying to.
It's good.
But sometimes you have to get into the weeds to see what it could look like in the future.
Well, to simulate for us decisions around land use that we might need to make in the future, so I think it's good to keep fresh.
Okay,
Well, any other business that needs to be discussed or brought or
Jen?
considered for the future?
well, in terms of business.
Yeah.
I reached out to the chair of the Economic Vitality Commission, and I just said, hey, as we're considering development, should we include you guys to learn about your hopes and dreams? See, if we can collaborate in our planning decisions. And I'm forgetting his name already, but he said, yes, I think that'd be great, Paul.
Yeah.
So I said, all right, I'll let you guys know, to see if you're interested in maybe having a joint workshop or having him attend a future meeting. He's welcome to, obviously, that he can hear what we're thinking about, we can hear what he's thinking about. And, we can help inform our decisions and vice versa.
I like that a lot. I think there are some different objectives fundamentally, but having the discussion is very good.
I also reached out to the Sustainable Futures Commission, and haven't heard back yet, to see if they'd like to do the same.
And my apologies, I have one more. We have received, I believe, 6 opposition letters to the triangle lot today from individuals that live in the community. Those have been put into the packet. There are 2 missing just because I got them after Maria had left, but they'll be reflected in the packet tomorrow for you all to look over as well.
As far as that goes with Paul, and then we had emailed about it, so I know a little bit about it. Do you have any potential time frame from the Economic Vitality Commission, or whether or not they'd be willing to come to one of our meetings, or how best to go about scheduling that?
So I think what I told him was that I would bring the idea to you, and if you guys were open to it, that I'd go back to him and we'd figure out if we wanted to have a joint workshop, or if we should just attend each other's meetings, or, that's really, I would use your advice on that one, but for your
Yeah.
advice, whatever you think, so.
Well, we meet, so every time we have a meeting on Monday, Andrew and I and Holly and Amy, if they're available, we'll meet and talk about our next agenda. Usually it's 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks out. And so if it's a light agenda, that might be one where we could give Paul, and maybe if you'd be our conduit, we could give you guys like a 2-week notice of, hey, we have some time for a workshop. And that would give staff time to maybe prepare a framing for a discussion with them. Does that sound reasonable to you guys? So we might not know it's gonna happen until like 2 weeks before, but that might be one time.
Cool.
And if that doesn't work, we'll try something else.
Holly, just gonna say,
Oh, hi, Holly.
Hey, I want to first apologize for being late. We had an executive session prior to this. And just let you know that I really appreciate the conversation and the in-depth conversation y'all have been having about this. And I want to give some historical context because somebody said, why was that triangle lot zone B? Like, that doesn't make any sense. My understanding is it's because the prior owner wanted to open a corner store there at one point. And so that's why it got zoned what it did. And just, yeah, a little historical context for y'all. But just thank you so much for all your work on this. I really appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Ollie. All right, anything else? Okay, we can be done, 7:51.
I might even have to put my kids to bed.
No question, did you pull those houses from the, what is
Hold
that? The portal, the little like pre-made building portal, or did you craft those? Oh, you're.
Pretty good save.
Components.
Pretty good thing. I have enough issues, so it might be enough.
Thanks, Jen, see ya.
I'm trying to, oh, I'm up here. I always forget I'm on this screen.